Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to a very special edition of the movie review series, and I'm joined once again by our very own YouTuber, the Holiday Christopher Mace. Chris, great to see you again. Been a while. How you doing?
Oh, just hanging in there, working life. You know how that goes, traveling around. So you record these shows as you're traveling around, getting other stuff done. You know how that goes.
Oh yeah, of course. So, for those of you who may or may have not seen the movie, we are here today to talk about the latest installments for the MCU of Phase 4, and that's Black Widow, starring Scarlett Johansson. So we've both seen Black Widow, so we're just here to talk about what we think of the film. There are a few spoilers, so if you have seen it already, that's fine, but if you haven't, I wouldn't recommend watching this because we're going to be spoiling quite a lot of this film. So we're going to start with you, Chris. So what did you think of Black Widow? What was your thoughts?
I saw it twice. I saw it on the Disney Plus on the premium access, and I saw it again in movie theater. Just so you know how you always miss stuff when it happens. All in all, I thought it was a pretty good movie. My biggest critique taking away from it, watching it twice, is that they could have easily inserted this right after Civil War before they released Black Panther, or they could have had Black Panther and then they could have gone back to this. They could have put it in either one of those spots before Infinity War came out. They could have done it that way instead of having to go back in time and tell a story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, I'd been here like forever, and I just never thought it would happen because I always looked at it like, I don't know if Black Widow is a strong enough character to have her own film, because I always thought that the best time to have done a movie for her would have been straight after Iron Man 2 when she was introduced. I would have thought that would have been the best time, but it never happened. So I thought, okay, well, maybe they might do it in Phase 2. Then when they did Age of Ultron and they showed little flashbacks of Natasha's origin story, I thought, oh, okay, maybe we're going to get it after Age of Ultron. Never happened. It was just one of those things that, oh, maybe they just don't think she can do it. And then finally it came out, after being, pushed back a number of times. I mean, I enjoyed the film for what it was. I thought it was quite enjoyable. But at the same time, like you said, they could have just released it after Civil War. Because it just felt a little bit clunky, like story-wise, because you're having to go backwards with the whole story, like just on the run, and they're referencing a lot of Civil War stuff. So a very enjoyable film. Just kind of felt like it was a step backwards, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because it was step backwards because, we already know that she dies at Endgame and she sacrificed herself for the Soul Stone. So she's not going to be in peril. We know she's not going to die in this movie. There's no real stakes where she's going to just end up being killed off in the movie or whatnot, because of that we already know when she dies in the MCU and the timeline and history. So that took that factor away of you don't understand it. Is the movie good? Is the movie worth a watch? Absolutely. I thought they did a really good job in giving her a solo movie and stuff like that. But I mean, I think the beginning scenes were the most impactful because how they redid the song for "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and the opening credits was like the more impactful thing at the beginning was because you see what she went through, what happened in flashbacks, and that song when they redid the song, the darker tone to it fit the thing perfectly. And I think that's a lot of people praise that how they redid that song and then did it that way and put it in there, inserted it at the right moment. Because I don't think Nirvana's original version would have fit that song being more upbeat and stuff. I think a bit set the movie. I think the music was probably the best part of the movie because all the music they use in the movie fit those scenes perfectly, and especially this song when you go in there and watch it and you see what happens to her and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the opening where you see Natasha thing about the film, because that was something you didn't really get to see much in the flashbacks in Age of Ultron. You only saw them a little bit of her as a kid doing gun practice with the goggles. That was probably the most you ever saw when she was training with the other Black Widows. So to have like a long extended opening scene flashback with Natasha as a kid, I thought that was probably the best thing about the film, because that's something we never really got to see much. So that was really good. And having Rachel Wells playing her mum, because we know it's not really her mum well. And I like the little reference to Crimson as well. I thought that was a cool little Easter egg they put out there, because Crimson Dynamo is an old villain from the Iron Man comics.
Yes.
So I thought that was kind of a cool little shout out to the old classic Iron Man movie of comics of Iron Man shouting out to Crimson Dynamo. But yeah, I've quite enjoyed this a lot. The Taskmaster, what was your thoughts on the villain?
Taskmaster is not the same villain you think the person is in the comic books. It's not the same person at all, not the same abilities, not thing. And here's the thing with the trailers made you believe that the Taskmaster was the main villain, and you find out it wasn't the main villain. But they do have to do those red herrings. They don't want you to look at the trailer and say, "Oh, I got the movie figured out in 5 seconds," because I know that's the villain. So I thought in that aspect they did a good job using the Taskmaster as a red herring, making it seem the Taskmaster was the main villain when the Taskmaster wasn't. The reveal of the Taskmaster being who she was interesting as well, because if you go back and recall, and I watched a couple other videos before we got ready to do this on some of the stuff that I might have missed with the Easter eggs. One thing you realize is in the first Avengers, when Black Widow's talking to Loki, he talks to her about her red ledger and talks to her about this girl's death and talks to her about it briefly, where he knows, because he proves to her that she goes, "You don't know anything about me," and then he brings it up. "Yeah, I know about your red ledger, your dirty little red ledger you have," and brings her name up specifically. So that made me thought then they might have been setting up a Black Widow movie way back then when they talked about that. But like I said, they waited, to me, so long to make this movie that a lot of people already knew what was going to happen. We already knew, like I said, my big critique is we already knew she wasn't going to die. We already knew everything. And another thing is, too, unless you saw the Disney Plus show, you didn't really, of the Disney Plus shows, you really don't know one of the characters was with the end credit scene. It was supposed to originally come out before the Winter Soldier and Falcon, and it didn't. It came out after the fact. So you already got introduced to this lady at the end credit scene, but we'll talk about that towards the end, because pretty much this movie ended up being a setup for another show that's going to be coming out at the end of the year.
That's right. And for those who have seen the ending of Black Widow, what he's referring to is the setup for the next series is Hawkeye. Hawkeye will be getting his own series on the Disney Plus, which comes out. When does it come out? It's end of this year, isn't it?
Scheduled to come out either November or December this year.
So it'll be sometime around towards the end of the year. And do you think there's a possibility that, because we know Black Widow is dead in the present time, do you think it's possible that we could see a Black Widow 2 with her quote-unquote sister in the lead? You think it's possible we might see that?
Yeah, I think they could set it up for that. I think it would work perfectly. She could take, so if I remember right, if she did take the mantle of Black Widow in the comics for a little while.
Yeah.
The sister was dead, if I remember correctly. Like I said, they go so far off sometimes with the comic book. Sometimes it's like they use the source material and then they make their own tell of it sometimes. So you're going, as a comic book fan and a movie fan, you go and watching them both, and you sometimes get split. They're going, "That's not what happened in the comic. In this issue, this happened. This is how it's supposed to play." And some people will die on that hill about this, and some, like me, I'm like going, "Okay, that's not what happened," but they're retelling their own tale. Okay, well, it's fine with me as long as you're trying to make sense of the story. And I think that's what MCU tries to do, is make sure that all their continuity stays consistent with what they're trying to tell, with the end goal of the next big movie that they're going to have come out or whatnot, or next show. Now we have all these Disney Plus shows coming out now. And what I'm thinking might happen, we might see Black Widow come back when either Doctor Strange Into the Madness of the Multiverse comes out, because it deals with the multiverse. And I think we might see her come back after we saw the ending of Loki, the season finale of the Loki, and what happened with Krang and stuff like that. Or Kang, I'm sorry. I always want to call him Krang. I always think Krang, Team Mutant Ninja Turtle. That's not how I say his name. Hold on.
No, that's cool.
If
Yeah,
you see Kang are the same thing almost, just take the R out and there you go.
yeah. I mean, going back to what you said before, like, you know, in the comics, there were two Black Widows. You had a good one and an evil one. One of them had blonde hair. And in the Iron Man comics, Hawkeye was a villain who was controlled by the Black Widow, the evil Black Widow.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you say, like, it's not quite the comics, but it's kind of like, well, it is from the comics, but we're just retelling it for the MCU. So yeah, they got that bit right in terms of like two Black Widows. One had red hair and one had blonde hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a little homage to the source material in a way, but they're just taking their own thing with it. So I thought that was quite good. And also the idea of what's it? All of Black Widow's family being part of this secret program. I thought that was a good twist, because all throughout the movie, I thought, oh, these guys are actually her family. And then later, when she does find them, like, the mum reveals that, well, no, we weren't really your parents. We were just hired to play parts of your parents, and your real mum gave you up. And you know, you had that scene where Natasha asked, "Did my mum ever try to come and look for me?" And she says, "I'm terribly sorry, Natasha, but your mum died a long time ago." So I thought that was kind of good storytelling, but at the same time, it was very bittersweet, because now she learns that these people she grew up with weren't really her biological family, but then her real mum is no longer, you know, alive. So I thought that was really good storytelling there. I thought that was very well done.
You also have to remember, though, too, in the Avengers Endgame, when Black Widow and Hawkeye go and they see Red Skull, who's guarding the Soul Stone, he references her parents, and Hawkeye's going, "No, this can't be real. This can't be right." She goes, "I didn't even know my parents' name. He did. He knew my parents' name. I didn't even know my parents' name."
Yeah, that was quite good as well. So yeah, it's all, yeah, as you say, if you nitpick and pick apart the whole film, there are little clues to like different films. There's references here and there's references there. So yeah, it's as you say, it's just like the timing of the film coming out. As you say, it's like they're going like a step backwards in terms of like the continuity.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think people were disappointed because they had listed Robert Downey Jr. reprising his role as Iron Man in this movie, and I believe what the rumors were, maybe they'll release it more when they release an extended cut of the movie, which they may possibly do if they do that sometimes with some of these movies. And if they release an extended cut, maybe they'll add the scene back. We know he already confirmed that he did record scenes for Black Widow. They just didn't use any of them. So I'm wondering if it maybe was scenes he was helping the general either at the beginning of the movie or towards the end of the movie find her because she violated. But then we also got to know, we don't know exactly what time frame. We know this is a time frame right after the airport scene from Civil War, but we don't know how all this plays out concurrent with after the airport scene from Civil War, where Iron Man has to go help Captain America and Bucky. Then Iron Man finds out that Bucky killed his parents and stuff like that. Those, I believe, were coinciding with each other at the same time frame in this movie. So we don't know if his scenes would have been during that time or after he had already had this battle with Captain America and everything like that. We don't know.
I will probably say that Black Widow probably takes place, I'm guessing, maybe just a few months after the events of Civil War. Because she does mention in the film that all the Avengers are all locked up in prison.
Yeah, so, they're all in the Falcons, Scarlet Witch, and Ant-Man, and Hawkeye were locked up.
And Captain America went on the run as well, didn't he?
Yeah, and then because you remember the end of that, because in the movie she talks about, now I got to go save my friends from the prison and stuff, and that would be going okay. So they're still in prison towards the end of the movie. So, but you don't see her at the end of the movie. You only see Captain America in there trying to break them out. You don't see her.
No. So the only thing I could probably say is that maybe at the time Captain America broke those guys out, maybe she was on her way back. So that's the only thing I could probably say to that.
Now, what do you think about her? What do you think about her dad always referencing her, who was supposedly her dad, always referencing, "I fought Captain America. He was my greatest foe. I beat him many times." That was kind of like humorous to me because in the comic books they really did fight each other, but
yeah,
in the movies in continuity, when he's saying we fought in like 82, 83, he was still frozen. Then, are you calling me a liar?
Yeah, I mean that was kind of funny because, as you say, we all know that Captain America was still frozen in ice because he was frozen for like over 70 years. So there's no way he could have met him. So I think that's just him just trying to make himself look good to his kids. So I fought Captain America. He was my greatest rival. So how could he be? How could he though? Because he was frozen.
Well, I mean, they may be, but they also may be doing it as a fan service for people that read the comics and knew they were both rivals, and too. Because in the comics, they fought each other. Because in the comics, he wasn't frozen no 70 years. He was frozen for a little while, but not for 70 years.
No, because in the comics, in the old original comics, the Avengers found him. What was your thoughts on the what's it the main villain played by Ray Winston? What did you think of his performance? I thought he was really good in this film.
I thought he really did a good job. I liked the kind of thing of, the pheromone. If you smell his pheromone, you're not going to be able to kill him. I thought that was a creative idea of how to prevent all the widows from trying to kill him. I like the scenes where you see in the red rooms and how they're all getting trained. I like those scenes. Because in the flashbacks you see him being in like more of an Avengers Age of Ultron. You see her more being like in a house where she's getting trained and stuff like that. So you kind of see where it's upgraded from when she was in there to now being up in the sky and the helicarrier and stuff like that, getting to training the Black Widows, everything like that. And I kind of I like the whole thing. You have to sever the nerve so you can be able to attack them and stuff. And I thought that was interesting. And I do like how her sister, and the funny thing is people critique, well, if it's the pheromone, her sister wouldn't be able to kill. Well, her sister wasn't really too near him when she did what she did to make sure that helicopter blew up with him in it. She wasn't really near him. So the whole theory of the pheromone thing wouldn't have worked at that aspect to me because she wasn't near him. You have to be close to him not to be able to kill him. And that's what he wasn't thinking. The close combat, though, but the Black Widows can't kill you. Far away, they probably still could.
I did love that scene. You bring it up. Their quote-unquote dad out of prison. I thought that was very good. In the Arctic with the helicopter, that big prison break riot. I thought that was really good. That was a very good scene. That was like he's trying to escape and Black Widow's trying to help him as well while she's like dangling from the helicopter. I thought that was really good.
And I like the jokes about Black Widow's pose. Like, you always have that pose, the pose, and then she does the pose and goes, "Oh, I can't do that."
Oh, such a poser.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she goes, "I'm trying to be a hero." It's like, no, you look ridiculous doing that. What's that all about?
Yeah,
and then when she does,
it's the callback to Iron Man 2. I do like the pose when she does that. It's the callback.
Yeah, there were as you say, there were little callbacks to Iron Man 2. So yeah, there's lots of callbacks to various things. Iron Man 2, lots of Civil War, lots of Avengers, like the first. Everything in this movie. So yeah, it was. I thought it was really good the way they brought everything all together. They did a really good job.
So now, but like I said, so they were able to save the day, like you said in the movie, and pretty much, Black Widow. And see, this is where I got confused toward the end. It's like, okay, so You're going to let the general capture you, and then we just go 2 weeks later. We don't see how you escape. We don't know any idea what happened afterwards. It's just all up to our imaginations what happened. And then she's getting ready to go after her friend. She's got blonde hair. It's like we now know how she got the vest. Somebody brought that up. Well, we know how she got that vest in Avengers Infinity War now. It was her sister's vest. It's like the little things that people will point out and you go, oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense now. You think about it. But that's not one of the things I was worried about watching these movies going, I wonder how she got that vest. Oh, it might have been interesting looking how she got it.
Yes, this sometimes when you're watching these movies, yeah, I understand they want to nitpick things to try and make sense of it all, but sometimes just let your imagination do the thinking for you.
Yeah, and I think now with the way they set up everything, I think what hurt this movie a little bit is the fact that all the Disney Plus shows have come out with WandaVision and Winter Soldier and the Falcon, and Loki came out, was going on still, widest premiered. So pretty much to me, it's like opening up the idea especially with the ending with WandaVision, her powers being so immense now, like it was in the comics, and Loki and the TVA and stuff like that. To me, it feels like with all these timelines rippling after what Sylvie did to Kang at the end of the series. So if you haven't seen that series, I'm going to spoil it now. When she killed Kang, it set up all those ripple effects in the timeline. And, now it makes me wonder, are we going to see a different variation of Black Widow coming out later, or even a different variation of Iron Man? Because we saw it similar to Endgame, where you saw Nebula from 2014, you saw Gamora from 2014, knowing we already know she died later on, but different characters from different timelines that were still around. They're alive, but they're just from different timelines. So the multiverse thing is going to be a big, huge deal, and I can see possibly them bringing back Black Widow and bringing back Iron Man in that aspect because of that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, as you say, it does. With them now, they're dabbling into the multiverse. There is a strong possibility we could see Black Widow from another timeline show up in the MCU. So it might not necessarily be Scarlett Johansson, but if she is contracted for another appearance, then the odds on seeing that are quite high. And the same for Iron Man. Whether or not it'd be Robert Downey, highly unlikely. But as you say, with the multiverse and the way Black Widow ended, all the possibilities are endless. So we'll just have to wait and see, really. And especially with the way Black Widow ended, Black Widow's sister now being given a new target, and it's Hawkeye, which obviously sets up for the Hawkeye series. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this is going to play out. But I would probably say overall that Black Widow was a good film. I enjoyed it for what it was. Would I want to see decide to do a sequel? I'm all for it, but if they don't, I'm not gonna be too bothered about it. The timing of this movie is a little bit off because we've had all the MCU films come out, and now you decide to do a Black Widow film. You just think, well, you could have just done that years ago. You could have done that during Phase 1 when he was building up the Avengers. But it is what it is. But for the movie, I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was decent. It won't go down for me as a classic MCU movie like some of the others, but it's a good flick. It's a good action flick. It's a good 2.5 hour action flick. I quite enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it was pretty decent.
I think once it gets on Disney Plus and they put it in the correct timeline order for people to watch, if they go back and watch all these films, because a lot of people will still go back and watch all these films from the beginning to try to catch stuff. And I think once they put it right in the right timeline order, after a while, people will forget that it didn't come out till years later. And I think that's exactly what will happen, because you know how they are. They put everything, they put it in order they were released. They put it on order of the timeline. And that's how we got, if you look at Disney Plus timeline, it shows Captain America first, and then it shows Captain Marvel, and then goes from Iron Man and goes forward, et cetera, et cetera. So in the chronological order. But that end credit scene, though, with Val showing up if you haven't watched Falcon and Winter Soldier, Val was the one who talked to the other gentleman that was being Captain America and told her, she recruited him. They're setting up for a different movie. I can't remember what the team's name was, so I apologize, folks. That was a team of villains that were trying to be superheroes, and that's what they may be setting up for in the future as well, with Black Widow's sister being part of the team, and then John Walker being part of the team and everything else like that. That may be what they're setting up for future films as well. But as for Hawkeye, see, and here's the thing is you're going to target Hawkeye because they've set it up where they're blaming Hawkeye for Black Widow's death. How would they, and this is the logic loophole I have in this theory. Okay, how are you going to say it's Hawkeye that killed your sister? Are you going to try to use scenes from Avengers Endgame where you have her on camera seeing what he was doing as Ronin, killing all those people, and then you see them together, and that's the last time you see them? Because nobody knows what happened to Black Widow except the Avengers and Hawkeye, who was actually there.
Yes.
So how do they know Hawkeye is? How are they going to say Hawkeye was the one that killed him? How are they going to explain that? And that's my only theory is they're going to say, well, she was going after him in Japan and found him. That's the last footage we have under security. That was the last time they were together, and now we know she's dead, and blah blah blah. And that's how they're going to justify it. That's the only thing I can see they can justify it, because how would they know, and how would be able to blame Hawkeye unless you had some kind of justifiable way to do it? Because they were not there when she sacrificed herself for the Soul Stone.
That is true. Yeah, I did have a little issue with that ending. Like, but Hawkeye didn't. How's that going to work? Because, as you say, blame Hawkeye for Black Widow dying when we all know what really happened. So it will be interesting to see how they'll address that in the Hawkeye series when that does drop on Disney Plus. Well, we'll just have to see, really. They obviously know what they're doing, so who are we to question?
They do, but you know how the fan theory. That was the first thing I thought when I saw it, because I had to think about it twice and really think, like, how would she know? And then we've already heard the rumors of a lot of deleted scenes where the director even said at one point during the end credit scene they were going to have it where you hear the whistle back, because the whistle was part of the big thing between a Black Widow and her sister of communication and stuff. And at the end, she whistled at her tombstone. And originally, the director was talking about how that they were going to have a whistle back, but then they decided not to do that because they didn't want giving people false hope that Black Widow was somehow still alive when she really wasn't.
Yeah, I think that worked better for the story. I think it would have been nice if they did that, but I think it works better for the story that they didn't do that.
Yeah, so now I'm just curious how the Hawkeye series is going to play out as well. It's pretty much, to me, the end credit scene was setting up for Hawkeye.
Yeah, clearly.
See what they do with Hawkeye now, because like I said, Hawkeye started becoming, whether you are a fan of Hawkeye or not, he started becoming a bigger deal after the Age of Ultron and stuff like that, and he played a significant role in Endgame as well and stuff like that as the Ronin character. And are we going to get Hawkeye, or are we going to get him more as Ronin? That's another question too, because when he's Ronin, he is more savage and vicious as Ronin. So I don't think it's going to be a very interesting matchup to see for sure when it does come out. And they're probably going to do callbacks to Black Widow. And the only other thing I can think of is if they do a Black Widow movie, they might do a prequel again just to show how her and Hawkeye, they kept referencing, well, we stayed up here for 3 or 4 days, the hideout, so we could try to escape and stuff like that.
Yeah, that still hasn't been fully addressed, because I did hear they want to address what happened in Budapest with Hawkeye and Black Widow. So yeah, we could get a prequel of that. I hope we do, but I do feel that's a little bit years too late, really. But again, we'll just have to see what the MCU have planned, really.
Yeah, because I think, like I said, the whole multiverse thing is going to shake up everything. I think everything's going to get shaken up real bad, real crazy when the multiverse comes out with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man No Way Home. I think everything's going to get shaken up quite a bit, and we've already started to see a setup of it now with the Disney Plus series. So I highly recommend, if you haven't seen any of those Disney Plus series, you need to get on the ball, and they're just about as good a quality as you would see an MCU movie. I definitely would recommend those if you want to be caught up and understand a little bit more what's going on, especially who the character was at the end credits scene with Val coming and talking to her sister and stuff. You definitely want to learn a little bit more about who she is exactly, and I would definitely follow up on the comics. I'm sorry I can't remember what team it was that in the comics she formed, but I went completely brain dead on the team. But it was a team of villains similar to like what Suicide Squad was in the DC comics. It's more of a team of bad guys trying to do good, and that was their version of it in the Marvel comics. So it's all going to be interesting. Black Widow itself, I would still honestly say Black Widow has been a success because we had the controversy. And here's something I was going to ask you about the controversy had with the Disney Plus stuff when they put on Premier Access. Disney announced their numbers. They made $60 million on Disney Premium Access on the weekend it first came out. And movie theaters were irate about this, because they lost a lot of money at the movie theaters when Black Widow came out because they had it on Premier Access. Do you think you see them going forward with with Marvel Studios and Disney Plus? Do you see them not doing as much premium access, especially with the Marvel movies now, with all this controversy going on with what they did with Black Widow?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say really at this point, but I mean, if they're doing well, if they're still doing well, I mean, the figures for WandaVision were absolutely amazing, and WandaVision won a lot of awards. So
yeah,
we'll just have to see what happens, really.
Yeah, we're going to wait and see because, like I said, I think a lot of the reason they did a lot of these premiere accesses because we were still in the time of pandemic, and then and it's like it gets better, gets worse, gets better, get worse, and stuff like that. And we just don't know exactly how it's going to play out. But at the end of the day, like I said, we're just going to continue to watch these movies because they're entertaining and everything like that. And we got, like I said, Phase 4 will build up into a whole new story. And it looks like we know what the story is going to be. And Black Widow played its part of rehashing story from the past after Civil War, but also doing what it needed to do to set up for a future series with Hawkeye. So I think it did its job really well. I would love to see Black Widow come back in some capacity, whether it's in a flashback scene or would they use the multiverse as a way to get her back and Iron Man back and Captain America. You got to realize Marvel and comic books, these deaths are never permanent. As much as we say, there's only a handful of characters in comic book history here and there that their deaths are permanent. It's more towards like the X-Men series, I would say, in comic book history, that deaths like Thunderbird and Morph and different characters like that, where their deaths were more permanent in comic book history compared to what the Avengers are and stuff. Because I've seen the Avengers die so many times and then get brought back, like in the Onslaught series. If you ever remember that, in the 90s, they did an Onslaught series, and all the Avengers sacrificed themselves to kill Onslaught, but then they were brought back in another multiverse. So when you hear the multiverse, you're thinking there's so many options. And I think whether they don't delay Spider-Man No Way Home, there are rumors they may delay it, but if they do end up delaying that, then once they both come out, you're going to see a whole new side of the multiverse and stuff like that. And if you want to have some idea of the multiverse, I would check out that Spider-Man animated movie they did about the multiverse with Miles Morales and his character. It was definitely worth a watch. I would definitely check that out if you want to have a little bit more of an understanding how the multiverse plays out. You'll have a better understanding of it.
For those who are not familiar with that title, it's called Into the Spider-Verse. Very good movie. So there you have it. That's pretty much our thoughts on the Black Widow movie. We both enjoyed it for what it was. What did you guys think? Did you enjoy the Black Widow movie? Were there a couple of issues? Did you have, the routine, guys? Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And also check out the Holiday Christopher Mace's channel as well, if you're a big fan of wrestling. Lots of cool content and lots of great stuff there for you guys to watch. So, Chris, thanks for coming by. Great talking to you about the Black Widow movie. And we'll wrap this up now, and I'll see you next time. So we'll see you guys real soon for another edition of the movie review series where we should hopefully be talking about Suicide Squad. So make sure you don't miss that. Chris?
Everybody take care and stay safe through everything going on in the world. Just everybody take care, stay safe, and appreciate all the love support that you show my channel and also Warhawk Beyond 2040.
Thanks, guys. Take care and stay safe.